After 25 years behind that bench, people built an image of me in their heads. Hard, unshakable, a woman with no patience for excuses and no tolerance for games. Most days, that description fit me perfectly. I built my entire career on cutting through noise, saying the uncomfortable truth out loud, and refusing to let anyone waste the court's time. I earned that reputation, and frankly, I never apologized for it. But there was one morning in April, one ordinary Tuesday, that caught me completely off guard. A little girl walked into my courtroom holding her father's hand, looked directly at me, and quietly said 4 words that stopped the entire room cold. "My daddy cries every night," and for the first time in a very long time, I had absolutely nothing to say. I've spent decades watching people fall apart in courtrooms. I've seen anger, fear, manipulation, heartbreak, and desperation. But what happened that morning stayed with me long after the courtroom emptied. Because this wasn't really about parking tickets or legal procedures. It was about a father trying to survive, a child who noticed more than anyone realized, and a moment that reminded me what justice is actually supposed to look like. Before television, before fame, before cameras followed me into every courtroom, I spent 25 years serving in Manhattan family court. 25 years watching families unravel and rebuild themselves in front of me. People assume courtrooms are cold places, and honestly, many of them are. But mine never was. Absolutely. Fast-paced? Always. But never heartless. I grew up in Queens. My mother could silence an entire room with one stare, and somewhere along the way, I inherited that exact talent. My father taught me something even more important. He believed the law existed to protect ordinary people. Rich or poor, powerful or struggling, every person deserved equal treatment when they stood before a judge. That belief shaped my entire life. That Tuesday morning, my calendar was packed with the usual parade of small violations and minor disputes. Traffic citations, parking issues, cases most people dismiss as meaningless. I never dismissed them, because to the person standing in front of you, their problem is never small. It's happening to them in real time. It matters to them completely. Halfway through the morning, one file caught my attention. Daniel Reyes. 3 unpaid parking violations. Same street, same days every week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. $45 each. With penalties, it totaled just over $200. Nothing remarkable at first glance. But patterns tell stories. And I've spent enough years on the bench learning how to recognize them. When Daniel walked into the courtroom, I noticed him immediately. Early 30s. Exhausted eyes. Thin frame. Clean button-down shirt carefully pressed despite obvious financial stress. People underestimate details like that, but I never did. When someone makes the effort to appear with dignity during difficult times, I notice. Then I saw the little girl beside him. She couldn't have been older than 5. Curly dark hair tied back with a yellow sunflower clip. Small white dress with blue flowers stitched across it. A stuffed rabbit clutched tightly against her chest. She looked around the courtroom fearlessly, completely curious, like she had wandered into an adventure instead of a courthouse. Children occasionally appeared in courtrooms, so that part wasn't unusual. What stopped me was the way she held her father's hand, not fearfully, protectively, like she was the one taking care of him. That tiny detail hit me immediately. I looked down at the file again and said, "Good morning. You're Daniel Reyes?" "Yes, Your Honor." He looked directly into my eyes when he answered. I appreciated that. "Don't stare at the floor in my courtroom. Face me." I nodded toward the little girl. "And who's this?" For the first time since entering the room, Daniel smiled. The kind of tired but genuine smile only parents have. "This is my daughter, Sophia." I looked at her. "Well, good morning, Sophia." She straightened instantly and answered in the most serious voice imaginable. "Good morning, Judge." The entire courtroom softened at once. Even the clerk smiled. I glanced back at the file. 3 violations. Same location every Tuesday and Thursday. Explain that to me. Daniel nodded slowly. "Your Honor, Sophia attends a therapy program for speech development nearby." The sessions last almost 3 hours. The parking limit there is 1 hour. I stay the whole time because I can't leave in the middle of her sessions. Why not use a garage? I can't afford it. No drama, no performance. Just honesty. He explained he'd recently lost his restaurant job after the business closed down. Since then, he'd been picking up grocery delivery shifts whenever possible just to stay afloat. "I'm trying," he said quietly. "I really am." I'd seen that expression thousands of times throughout my career. People hanging on by a thread while pretending they were fine. Then Sophia tugged gently at his sleeve. Daniel leaned down toward her, and she whispered loudly enough for the entire courtroom to hear, "My daddy cries every night. Everything stopped. I want to be clear about something. I am not someone who cries easily in court. I've been called ruthless more times than I can count. Tough. Cold. Unforgiving." But those 4 words landed somewhere deep inside me, because children don't lie about things that matter. Adults perform. Adults manipulate. Children simply tell the truth. And the truth sitting in front of me that morning was devastatingly simple. A little girl had been quietly listening to her father's struggle alone at night. I removed my glasses and pressed my fingers briefly against my eyes before speaking again. Daniel looked completely shattered that Sophia had said it aloud. Not angry. Not embarrassed. Just exposed in the most painful way possible. I cleared my throat. "Mr. Reyes, you're carrying a heavy load right now." He tightened his jaw immediately, the way people do when they're trying desperately not to fall apart in public. "Yes, Your Honor," he said softly. "But we'll be okay." And somehow I believed him, not because life was easy for him. It clearly wasn't. But because I could already tell he was the type of father who would drag himself through fire before letting his daughter suffer. The carefully ironed shirt told me that. The therapy appointments told me that. The hours spent waiting outside every Tuesday and Thursday told me that. I looked again at the amount owed. $210. To some people, that's barely noticeable. To a struggling single father trying to survive gig work while raising a child with special needs, it can become a disaster. One missed payment leads to another, then a suspended license, then no transportation, then missed therapy sessions, then a child falls behind. That's how quickly lives unravel. I looked directly at him. "Mr. Reyes, after many years on this bench, I've learned how to read people fairly quickly. And what I see in front of me is a man doing everything possible in a situation that keeps making life harder." His eyes watered immediately, though he tried hard not to show it. I continued. "All 3 fines are dismissed." The courtroom released one collective breath. Relief filled the room so suddenly you could almost feel it physically. Daniel blinked several times before speaking. "Your Honor." "I don't even know what to say." "You don't need to say anything," I replied. "Just keep taking care of your daughter." Then Sophia looked up at him and asked, "Daddy, is it good?" For the first time all morning, Daniel laughed. A real laugh. The kind people release when pressure finally leaves their chest. He lifted her into his arms. "Yes, baby," he whispered. "It's good." She touched his face gently and smiled. I knew it. I looked down at my paperwork immediately afterward, because I needed a second to collect myself. My clerk quietly slid a tissue toward me without saying a word. That's what happens when someone knows you long enough. The rest of the afternoon continued, but my mind kept returning to those same 4 words. "My daddy cries every night." Around 2:00, another woman approached the bench, Angela Moretti, another parking ticket case. But before we even started, she said something unexpected. "Your Honor, I'm Daniel Reyes's sister." I sat back slightly. She explained she had been present earlier that morning and had heard everything Sophia said in court. Then she told me the rest of the story. Sophia's mother had left shortly after the child was diagnosed with speech delays. Daniel had been raising her alone ever since. Every appointment, every therapy session, every bedtime story, every difficult night. He learned therapy exercises himself so he could practice with Sophia at home. He packed her lunches exactly how she liked them. He searched stores for butterfly hair clips because they made her smile. And he never complains, Angela said. Not to anyone. Then her voice cracked. But Sophia hears him at night when he thinks nobody can. The courtroom fell completely silent again. Angela wiped her eyes before continuing. I'm not asking you to dismiss my ticket. I just needed someone to understand who my brother really is. He's been invisible for a long time. I took a slow breath. Your ticket is dismissed too. She immediately tried to thank me, but I stopped her gently. Go home and tell your brother he is not invisible. She covered her mouth and nodded through tears. After she left, I sat quietly for several moments thinking about how many extraordinary people move through this world unnoticed. Pancrants who sacrifice everything. People who keep showing up no matter how exhausted they are. People nobody applauds. 3 days later, my clerk knocked on my office door. Daniel Reyes and Sophia are here to see you. When they walked in, Sophia grinned at me like we were old friends. Daniel thanked me again, but then admitted something else. After leaving court that day, he sat in his car thinking about what Sophia had said. I didn't know she could hear me, he admitted quietly. I thought I was hiding it better. He looked ashamed of his own pain. I leaned forward slightly. Daniel, your daughter holding your hand that morning like she wanted to protect you. That doesn't mean you failed. It means she loves you deeply. He stared at me silently. Children don't protect people they fear, I continued. They protect the people they love most. Something shifted in his expression after hearing that. Then Sophia suddenly held her stuffed rabbit across my desk toward me. You can hold him, she said seriously. He's nice. I've received awards throughout my career. Recognition, television success, public respect. None of it affected me the way that tiny gesture did. I carefully accepted the rabbit. What's his name? Mr. Flop. Well, I replied. Mr. Flop seems like excellent company. She nodded proudly before taking him back. A few weeks later, I learned Daniel had been hired full-time at a restaurant reopening downtown. Benefits included stable schedule, Tuesdays and Thursdays free so Sophia could continue therapy uninterrupted. That news stayed with me for days. Because sometimes justice isn't dramatic. Sometimes it's simply stopping one bad domino from knocking down the rest. Months later, I saw them again at a community event. Sophia was talking far more clearly. Her therapy was working beautifully. She ran directly toward me the moment she spotted me. Judge. I crouched down to her level. You look wonderful. I know, she answered confidently. I laughed harder than I had in weeks. Daniel looked healthier too. Rest. Lighter somehow. He told me Sophia's therapist had recently called her progress remarkable. Then he looked at his daughter with overwhelming pride. Watching them walk away together that afternoon reminded me why I spent so many years on the bench. Not for television. Not for attention. For moments like that. Because real justice isn't only about punishment or procedure. Sometimes it's about seeing someone clearly when the world keeps overlooking them. People often asked whether I was too tough during my career. Here's my answer. The law absolutely needs strength. But strength without compassion means nothing. A courtroom must have structure, discipline, and accountability. But if there's no humanity behind it, then justice becomes hollow. That Tuesday morning in April reminded me of something I never forgot afterward. Sometimes the most important thing a judge can do is simply recognize the quiet battles people are fighting long before they ever walk into a courtroom.